should have one of those reflectors so I can work on my tan while I'm sitting here.
LEDs aren't bright enough.
I know, but it sounds good. Feels like they're bright enough.
Hey friends, I just got back from going to town to pick up some propane for the greenhouse and barely made it in time.
Right, they can't pump after dark there.
Right, because they don't have a separate outdoor light that's right over the pumping station.
Right. Which I suppose makes sense, because you really don't want to screw that up.
So this has been a half productive day and a half unproductive day, for me at least.
Yeah, it's I got a lot of annoying things done today. You know, little projects that are just bugging you that you need to get done, but it doesn't make you feel necessarily like you've accomplished much. But when I actually look at my list, think that's what lists are for, to remind you that you actually did do something sometimes. I can actually go through and say, yeah, got that done, got that done, got that done. So, yeah. And my packages, my stuff should be in tomorrow. So hopefully it'll be in tomorrow before we leave.
Could be.
Maybe that it'll have to wait until... I just don't want to leave it there too long, because last time we left it there a little too long. Someone else took it home for 6 months.
And they couldn't figure out where it went or who had it or anything else. But what actually happened was somebody who gets a large number of packages in at that location just picked everything up in a stack because their stuff was on top, their stuff was next down, and the bottom box was theirs, so they assumed everything else was theirs.
Mm-hmm, which it wasn't.
Nope. So we got it back in 6 months later, I think. Maybe
yeah,
a little bit longer.
It was about 6 months later. Maybe as short as 3, but it was still beyond annoying.
Well, my day started off great. Did some breakfast, made some special breakfast for you, had some unspecial breakfast for me, and then I was going to start fixing a problem that one of our viewers commented on yesterday's show, and that had to do with the audio volume on the show. It was down, and I know what causes that. We have 2 separate sets of wireless microphones. We're using one set tonight. We used a different set the other day, and that set needs to be modified in the software so that it puts both microphones on one channel. So it's a mono instead of a stereo channel.
Right. Well, I had commented to you when I listened to the video last night, it seemed a little quieter than usual. I mean,
yeah, it sounded fine to me, but...
Yeah, no, it sounded quieter than usual, a lot quieter.
So I got on the computer and got everything connected up, and right away, the software was the wrong version. So I downloaded the software and reinstalled it on my PC, and then tried to connect the receiver for the set of microphones up to the computer. It didn't recognize it.
Oh, goody.
So now I have one set of mics that work with our cameras and the editing software and works just fine, and another set that don't work fine.
Who do you have to call on that? Road or the people you bought it?
Ghostbusters.
Right. No, right.
Yeah, it's Ghostbusters. I downloaded the current version of the Rode software because the old version of the Rode software didn't recognize that receiver.
Right. So you assumed it was a newer receiver that, yeah.
So I downloaded the new software, and I know the new software is going to allow me, well, in theory, if it recognizes anything, it'll allow me to update the software on the receiver, and I'll be able to make it do mono instead of stereo, and everything will be fine.
Right, right. Because I know I'm really careful when I turn the Rode stuff on and off to do a single solid push, because I remember Jeff and Dovey mentioning the problems with the Rode, that you could, if you accidentally double click and stuff like that, you can change the settings and screw things up. So I'm always super careful about that, because we had something go similar like that go wrong one time.
Yeah, lunch was great. We had some homemade tomato soup. You had it with milk, I had it with cream. I didn't water it down enough with milk. It was still too tomatoey.
Too tomatoey, yeah.
It sounds funny to say that tomato soup can have too much tomato, but it really did have too much
It
tomato.
can, and I like the sweetness that milk imparts. So, yeah, it was good, but it will be better the next time around.
Now we found a reason to grow more tomatoes.
I have like a gazillion gallons of tomato sauce right now, so I'm not too concerned about that.
Well, the lunch was good, and then I started back in on this Chinese diesel heater.
The word cluster comes to mind. As I mentioned to Henry last night, I know this thing is a deal in comparison to the other mainstream companies, but the amount of hours, it's always a balancing act. When you're doing home repair stuff, you have to sit there and say, okay, how much is my time worth? And that's why sometimes you'll find people buying specialty tools. In the jewelry industry, you'll find that this specialty tool will cut the amount of time by a quarter, down to a quarter of what it would take you if you used other equipment. Now, I could use the other equipment, and certainly in an emergency I can, if something breaks, or if I'm at an event and I need to repair something. But sometimes having exactly the right tool makes all the difference in the world. Well, in this case, we're looking at a heater that you've already replaced the wiring harness on and the
Fuel
pump on it. The only things left to replace are the heater and the controller, and at which point you've built an entirely new heater.
Well, more about that later during this conversation.
Right.
But the essential problem has been that all of the sets of instructions that I found about how to use that controller have not applied to the controller that we have.
Right, and you can't tell that from the outside. It's not like if I use my Accurite or whatever the heck it is brand of thermometer, that's a Wi-Fi thermometer, it will have the numbers on there, and by those numbers you can tell which set of instructions is going to work for it. And we've dealt with this before with some of the Chinese-made heat mats and stuff like that. I had to learn what the proper numbers were in centigrade because I couldn't find...
You could switch it.
I couldn't switch. You're supposed to be able to
Right.
make it switch between Fahrenheit and centigrade or Celsius, so you don't have to sit there and hassle and talk to Siri and ask her what the temperature should be. But it would never work, no matter which set of instructions I used. So I just set it for Celsius.
I'm kind of in the same position. I've been able to cut out 2 to 4 hours a day to work on this heater because the heater was inexpensive. The alternative is to go spend $1,300 plus tax and shipping for a Webasto heater, which there's no guarantee that it's going to not have the same kind of problems. Now, the great thing about these Chinese diesel heaters is there used to be a term used for copies. And this
knockoffs.
well, that's in fact what this is. All the parts
That's a polite term for it. I'm sure there's some less polite ones.
all the parts that go inside the heater are available from a variety of suppliers, including the companies that make Webasto and other.
Right, because what they did is it's kind of like when you used to work in the semiconductor industry and some Chinese company would be hired to produce chips for somebody and then they would take a copy. And the next thing you know, they're selling the same blasted chip and then they have to go to international court and sue them and this and that. And the other thing to prove that they're being ripped off.
Well, there's really nothing can be done about this because the casting that's used looks amazingly like the high-end castings. The glow plug, the screens, everything looks very much the same. So that was one of the reasons why I was relatively comfortable buying this unit to start with. But I haven't been able to find a set of instructions. Now, our friend Steve from Digwell Greenfingers has sent me a ton of information, as has Ronald Shaw from Ronald Shaw's Parking and Garden Area. I think it's just Garden Area now. Both of them have been very, very helpful. The problem is that nothing is lining up. And I've looked now at dozens and dozens of YouTube videos about how this controller is supposed to work. Now, there's a theory that if the controller, that's the control unit on the heater itself that controls all the bits and bobs, there's a theory that you would have to unplug that power for some indeterminate time. It could be 10 seconds, it could be a couple of minutes, and that might clear an error. Well, no luck. So that's why I replaced the fuel pump, because it sounded like that could be the problem. And then I replaced the wiring harness because it sounded like that could be the problem.
Well, we knew the pins were loose on one of the wiring harnesses.
Well, it's actually the pump itself, the socket that the plug from the wiring harness plugs into, didn't allow the plug to mate up correctly. And that sure seemed like that was going to solve the problem. I was really, really, really
I'm a
hopeful.
bigger skeptic than he is.
I didn't say I was convinced. I was really hopeful.
Right.
And there's nothing as crushing as
as plugging it back together with a new harness and nothing happens.
Something did happen. It gave me the same error code that it had before.
Right. Yeah. Well, he had me out there today and had me holding probes on stuff when he was checking something else to see if it was doing anything.
Well, one of the things with electronics is that it's easy, if the voltage goes too low, to have the electronics go haywire. And that's been a theory that a number of people have mentioned. So I improved the connections to the battery, and I asked Irene to hold the probes on the battery to watch to see what happens with the voltage level. And what happened?
The last number, which is 100ths, changed by one number. And it would fluctuate between an 8 and a 9.
So basically there was no drop in voltage on that battery.
No, I was really expecting something amazing to happen, and nothing amazing happened.
So the actual reason why it ought to change a little bit, not a whole lot, is when that solenoid, because you remember this is just like our solenoid in our irrigation system. There's an electromagnet, a bunch of wire wound around an actuator, and you engage and energize that electromagnet. It makes a piston go up, and it shoots a little bit of diesel oil up the pipe. And then you take the electricity away, and it drops back down, and you put electricity back on, and it pumps another 22 milliliters up. It sounds like it's making one try to go up, but it's not doing what it's supposed to do. And error 4 shows up again.
Right.
So I have all the parts to completely rebuild this unit. I've replaced every single part.
Well, I told him when he's all done with this, he can take all the spare parts and make them into another unit.
I have 2 units now. I have 2 units and parts. They're both behaving exactly the same. Now, there's a cautionary tale here dealing with products from China. And that is...
A lot of times there is no customer service. Zero.
Well, there's a customer service email address and there's a customer service phone number. I called the phone number and I have to leave a message. So I send an email and I got a very nice response back, and they asked for some very specific information, which I supplied, and then they responded back promptly saying, well...
You didn't buy that from us.
That's exactly what they said.
Well, he bought it from their freaking store on Amazon. Because, you know, a lot of times a company will actually, you know, like the flat pack furniture I got here. Schaefer has their own store on Amazon. A lot of companies have their own store so that you can go there and have all the information, and they're supposedly providing the customer service if you need anything or anything else like that. If you go to Amazon and you say, I'm having a problem with this, they say, you need to go to this company, and they will handle it for you. Because I had that once happen.
So now I'm down now to I've changed the wiring harness, I changed the fuel pump, I've changed the ECU, that's the control board that makes the heater actually function,
Okay.
and I still have the same problem.
Right. So
disconnect-
is there? You told me there was a board inside the actual heater
That's
box
the one that I've
you've
replaced.
changed. So the only thing you haven't changed then is the separate controller, right?
I changed everything. I changed it all.
Okay.
In fact, now
Maybe
I
you
have,
should just take the other pieces and put that together and see if that'll work. I'll build a box for you.
and that's what I did. So I'm now waiting for information yet again from the manufacturer, but they say they're the manufacturer, but I'm positive looking at their website, they did not manufacture this unit. So we're down now to, there's either a systematic wiring error in the wire harness, or the ECU board that controls the actual heater that's actually packaged in the heater itself has a problem. Both ECUs have the same problem. Now it's possible that because I don't have the instructions for the LCD unit itself, that a different sequence of key presses will get me a different result.
Oh yeah, because we've had some things that, you know, it was like a tap dance performance for 5-year-olds. Do this, do that, do this, in order to make something that should have taken 2 buttons work.
Now the bad thing about this heater, now these 2 heaters, is that there's no serial numbers on them. There's no part numbers on them.
Yeah, there's no model numbers. It's not like with my thermometer where I can say, oh, this is this model. Now I can go onto the website and I can pull up the manual for that, and it will tell me exactly what, in 17 different languages, and what to do with it, you know?
So I went through the trouble of tracing out the wires to figure out where a problem could be, and my assessment is the problem has to be in the ECU. Could be wrong. It could be that I'm not doing the right key presses. I've done all the key presses that all the different instructions say for all the different controllers. I don't have a controller that looks exactly like everybody else's. So it's a matter of, how do I figure this out? Well, the answer is I wait for the Amazon team to get back to me, which I'm assured they'll get back to me within 24 hours.
Right. He's asked for schematics so that he can actually look at the schematics, and thank God he can read schematics, and that he can sit there and go, okay, this makes sense, that doesn't make sense, da-da-da-da-da, you know.
So it's been I wouldn't say a roller coaster ride, it's been a downhill ride.
Yeah, like right off a cliff. Beep.
So what I discovered is that the fuel pickup on the heater itself is not in the right spot for the mounting plate that they give you, and in fact it's off a little bit, just like the very first body.
Right.
All the problems I saw with the first unit, I'm seeing with the second bits and pieces that are now a unit. So once I know how to make one work, I'll know how to make 2 work. I'm still optimistic because I have one more trick, but I don't want to do that.
I'm trying not to sneeze, sorry.
So the whole reason for doing this was that I have a way to make fuel that can be run in this diesel heater very inexpensively, so that it'll probably cost about $1 a gallon to run fuel through that heater, which is a whole lot cheaper than propane. It's in the greenhouse because I wanted to keep tomatoes going and a few other things. Well, they're pretty much dead, but I at least wanted to let them ripen on the vine, and it's time to get some seedlings planted out there, some seeds started for out there. Until I have something that I can reliably run, I don't think we can do it.
No, I think nothing's happening until after Thanksgiving at this point. Unfortunately, I mean, I had hoped to actually have stuff in the greenhouse ready to eat for Thanksgiving, but it's been one thing after another, and I got to the point where I just kind of threw my hands up in the air and said I'm going to work on my business, because at least I could pay the bills that way.
So there's a lot of things that you can do. The more skills you have, the better off you are on one hand, and the worse off you are on the other hand. Because if you have the skills, now you're going to spend time.
Yeah, yeah, and there's times when it has paid off. You've been able to talk to the people who built our generators, and you can replace things with that. You can explain to an engineer at the other end, who's really an engineer who speaks English, what's going on, and they understand, and they can give you the real information. But do we know what the model number is? Because it's got one, and all that kind of stuff. And I know a lot of that stuff was still manufactured overseas, but it's more traceable.
And they have better quality assurance.
Yeah, yeah. Because that's always been the problem. Wherever you are manufacturing, you have to have quality assurance. And we've seen that when they first tried to manufacture car parts in Mexico. That was a disaster. One of the cars that we bought had a leaky transmission case because they had porosity in their metal. And that all came out of Mexico. And they had a total lockdown. In order to get a new transmission case, you had to get corporate approval. And they got us one because it was a brand new car, and they were within a week of having to give us our money back because we lived in California at the time, which has the lemon law. They were giving me nicer rental cars every time I went to visit. The rental cars were free. And by the time we got done, I was driving an Audi. It was kind of cool. I'm like, yeah, can I just keep this one instead?
Power heated seats,
Oh,
heated
everything.
steering.
I mean, practically had an electric toothbrush in there. It was pretty amazing. It was like, wow, I've never driven a car this nice before.
This heater is really, really stupidly simple. It has a pump to pump fuel up. Mm-hmm. It goes up a tube, goes into a chamber, a glow plug ignites it.
Right.
Another pulse comes along and ignites. Another pulse comes along and ignites. And once the chamber is hot,
The glow plug can turn off. Yeah.
glow plug doesn't have to keep on running.
Right.
You have a fan to blow air. Mm-hmm. Really, really, really simple. Why didn't I design one like this and build it? I really seriously thought about it. But the reason for it is that it's a really complicated problem.
And he was trying to save time.
I was trying to save time. Well, I think in the end I will have saved time, but it's important to keep the combustion chamber and the radiator that goes into your living space, in this case the greenhouse, separate. So that's the reason why I went the way I went.
Right.
Along about now, I'm second guessing whether that was a good choice or not.
Right, along about now, I'm second guessing whether they did a good job of keeping the exhaust separate from the other things, because the pictures they sent us of the heater don't look anything like the heater we have. And if they screwed all those other things up, how are we to know whether they screwed that up too?
Fortunately, I can test that. And if they screwed it up, I can replace the gaskets. Well, thanks for watching. This has been a really frustrating afternoon for me. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe. You can like this anyway, even though I'm not liking it right now. Hit the bell for notifications so that you find out when we continue publishing the long saga of...
Right, whether we build a bonfire for Thanksgiving in the yard and throw all the pieces into it with some firewood, or whether we try and repair the heater. Top it off with a little diesel, so it'll burn well. I look at all the things that we need to get done, and the amount of time he spent on this.
It's too much time.
It is. It's ridiculous. I mean, when I hit a project like this, I walk away from it because I can't take that much time out of my schedule.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't do that because I have things that need to be heated. But in any case, we'll talk with you later. Bye.
Bye. And be sure to keep brainstorming, because somebody over here is.